there it is. Hello, and welcome to the Canvas Podcast. We are repeating a show that we were going to have last week, which I was really looking forward to. I know a lot of you were looking forward to it as well. So I have here Kristen Ruth.
Hello.
Hello, Kristen.
Hello.
Kristen is a licensed marriage and family therapist, doctoral candidate for sports psychology, certified sports psychology consultant. And actually, I've worked with Kristen throughout my career as well. And so we have her visiting from California. And then we have another one from California, Melissa DeWeese, who you guys know that I talk about. I talk about both of these women a lot. When I post a lot of my stuff, but we have Melissa DeWeese, who's a diet coach and health insurance professional. And I really wanted to get them on today to talk about human behavior, talk a little bit about nutrition, and especially coming from the athletic standpoint with athletes. I know a lot of us, some people are, weekend warriors and they're kind of freaking out right now because all their gyms are closed. Mm-hmm. But I want to talk about the psychological aspect as far as routine. And I know a lot for me, not just being an athlete, but just going through what I've been through with depression. And now times are, they're just crazy. And we're just talking a little bit about Netflix. So I kind of want to leave this open for us to discuss, and kind of Kristen and Melissa can go back and forth and share whatever you guys feel, is important for our audience to hear.
Sure. I mean, I can jump in first if you want. Sure. So, kind of with the what's going on right now, if we look at like the whole pandemic and what it's forced a lot of people to do is to fall off of their regular routine, but also at the same time psychologically freak out about it. Typically, people that aren't even routine people are freaking out about not having access to certain things like the food that they want or the convenience of going to a gym, and a lot of that stemming truly from a physiological and psychological place of feeling the fight or flight response. And might go a little too deep into this, but there's a part of our brain called the amygdala. And whenever we feel that we are threatened in some capacity, that lights up. And we either come into a place of where they're going to fight against the adversity, or we're going to flight. It's the same thing that happens in sports, especially in boxing, where if you are having an opponent come towards you, you're either going to duck or you're going to proceed forward. And other sports as well. What we're dealing with right now is that we have this threat that's all around us. It's a real threat. We can't necessarily see it, but we see it play out in people's behaviors. And so our decisions then are playing out in our own behaviors of hoarding toilet paper, for example.
Yes. What's going on with that?
Yeah. So like from a primitive perspective, the amygdala really helps us, because when we were back, like when we were living in caves and we had dinosaurs chasing us, like real threats where we were going to get eaten, the amygdala stems some stuff in our body to be able to run away from the threat. We don't actually have those same threats. Even with the coronavirus and around us, we don't have a direct threat to us, meaning somebody's not going to eat us right now. And so our brain is trying to process this, is how do we have this psychological threat, which is an understanding of there's danger out there, but it's not actually readily in our face. And so we're doing some very weird stuff, which is the hoarding toilet paper, the hoarding the food, the suddenly deciding that you're going to rearrange everything in your house. It's basically a response to stress. So in doing that, I'll actually fit it over to Melissa, is because I know she can speak a lot more to this, is how do we combat that, is actually finding where our basic foundational routines are when it comes to diet and exercise and self-care and all that good stuff. So.
Yeah, and before I get into all that, I wanted to ask Kristen a question, because it's
Sure.
something I've been noodling on, is that we have, generational theory out there, mm-hmm. and I would imagine that the baby boomers and the Zoomers are acting two different ways.
Absolutely.
And have different fears, because as we all know that our behaviors are a product of our environment, how we grew mm-hmm. up, and what events have happened to us. Like we all lived through 9/11. Everybody on this mm-hmm. call did. But there is, a newer generation coming up that hasn't been through a travesty. And then, of course, a lot of our parents have been through different types of events. We had mm-hmm. the greatest generation that went through the Great Depression, and all of us today, most of us haven't seen that. So, mm-hmm. do you have any insight as to what how different people at different generations are reacting to this?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a really good question. So it's called a resiliency factor. Resiliency, in a nutshell, is how do we bounce back from something that is a true threat or something that is knocking us off course. In sports, for example, you have to be resilient. You're going to experience some loss, and how you process that loss is going to determine how you actually then go back into the game or go back into your sport. To Melissa's point, is each generation we've actually become weaker and weaker in resiliency. If we date back to even World War I, World War II, we had the draft going on. So people were forced into war that weren't prepared for it and had to figure it out. Families also had to figure it out because they had their husbands and sons and everybody deployed. And so they just had to figure out how to do life. That's where even World War II, the Rosie the Riveter, women were going into factories, having to support their families. So there was this innate resiliency that was created historically. If we then fast forward to these generations, 9/11 for our generation was a big deal because it was probably our first taste in our lifetime of the U.S. Being under a direct threat. Our resiliency in that aspect was then to come up with ways to be more cautious, be more aware. That's when all the TSA stuff in the airports and all the checks were employed. Developing a greater sense of American pride too is also there as a response. Now, if we then factor it down into another generation, the millennial generation, kind of even lower than that, they haven't had that same sort of threat. What they've had is a lot of emotional coddling because we've actually, as our generation, has created a safer environment for people. And there's Gustavo in the background if anyone wants to know. So
I got Chitty right there.
he's therapy dog. He's like, when mom starts talking, I just go to sleep. Anyways, so the generation that we have right now, the millennials, are people that have not necessarily had the same, and this is a total generalization, by the way. I know it's specific to each individual, but we have a generation now that doesn't have that same sort of resiliency factor. So what happens is when we have a threat, one of two things. One, people break down completely emotionally because they don't have this resilience, or two, they ignore it. And that's why in your lovely state of Florida, why all the spring breakers decided to go out and do the spring break thing, even though that there was a true pandemic threat going on, and everybody ended up getting the illness because they thought they were untouchable. So where we're at right now, if we couple this with an actual real threat that's going on around us, these different generations responding to it in very different ways, it's creating a lot of chaos and a lot of disconnect between people. And then add the physical disconnect on top of it, and we have a very, very, very chaotic experience for most people right now.
Yeah, and I was reading some reports. Of course, I left them in my car. I was prepared, but I didn't bring it with me. I basically showed how many people over the weeks, it seemed like every week it was going up about 5% of people that were saying that they're being mentally challenged. Their mental health status was getting worse as each week into the lockdown, or I hate using that term, but the stay-at-home order here in California. It seemed like people were being surveyed, and they were stating that they were having the severe mental illness category was getting bigger in comparison to the minor, and in comparison to the not affected at all. So that was really concerning to me to see that.
A lot of that's coming too from very poor coping skills, and that again speaks to the kind of diminishing of the resilience factor here. What's happened in the last month? Mental health usage has actually gone up 800%. That was a report that was first in April. As meaning reaching out to therapists, reaching out to hotlines. Suicidality has gone up as well because you're also now dealing with, again, disconnect from people, not eating on a regular basis. Your schedule is totally off track. Sleeping is totally off track. But one of the biggest factors is alcohol sales have now tripled, if not quadrupled, in most states within the past week. And so that means people are now drinking more, they're using more. Anytime that we enter substances into the mix, the emotional instability occurs too. And then when you couple that with not having to actually go to work, if you're not considered one of the people that needs to actually go to work, it's just a recipe for disaster. So the other thing that we're seeing too is people that are forced to be with their families. It sounds nice for us that might not have that, you're dealing with all the family issues amplified. So if there was domestic issues before, they're amplified now. Domestic violence has gone up like crazy. Child abuse has gone up like crazy, because everybody's under this same roof. The big interesting one that I deal with as a marriage and family therapist is all the people that were having affairs can't necessarily have affairs as easily right now. And so they're having to now address all of their marital issues head on with the person under the same roof, because they don't have access to their side chick, basically. So what Melissa's absolutely is very accurate is what could be considered psychological inconveniences or behavior issues have now full blown into psychological disorders, because we're now at the 6-week mark for most of us of being in a condition where we've been in an altered state, not only behaviorally but environmentally too.
Yeah, and I don't want to minimize that. There's there's a lot of rosy things I could say. Really, it's when it comes down to health, because right now we're not really working on our physiques or, I think a lot of us that were distracted by moving our physiques forward and focusing on body fat percentage and focus on, getting on stage or competition, like that's been put on hold right now. And so we're forced to look inwards and upwards, as I like to say. And that's a really difficult challenge. Now, when it comes to taking the focus off of physique and, performance and just focusing on health, that's what I'm seeing is that more people are trying to figure out, okay, what can I do to boost my immune system and what can I do to be healthy? And it's not a sexy story. I mean, the truth is eat whole foods, drink your water, make sure make sure you're getting your vitamins and your minerals in, have some salt here and there in your water. Minerals are really good for you. Make sure you're having adequate vitamin C, vitamin D, get out in the sun, move, do yoga at home. They're like, thank God during this pandemic in comparison to other pandemics we've been through in the past, we have YouTube, we have mediums like this where we can learn information, we can positive information rather than just fixating on the news per se, which I would say if you are having mental illnesses or stress, eliminate whatever is causing you stress. Yeah. Obviously, if you're living in the home with the same person that's causing you stress, that is very hard to do. But one thing that you can do is, put your earbuds in, go on a walk, put on a positive podcast. Music is so therapeutic. I can't even tell you like how many times I've been in a bad spot and thrown on some music and gone on a walk, and it just completely takes me away, even if it's just for 5 minutes. It's very, very powerful. So I guess as far as building in routines, I think that is one of the most important things you can do. And also focusing on, for me, I think focusing on some sort of spirituality, something that is greater than yourself, greater than this epidemic.
You can say the word God on the Canvas podcast, just so you know. This is my show. And I praise an all grateful God. So, but again, whatever your spirituality is, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a Christian too. And I believe that Jesus is moving in very strong ways right now. And I think God is drawing near, but I don't want that to be a barrier for anyone. I know that there was a point in my life where that was a barrier, and I had to focus on a God of my understanding at that time, which started out very, very basic. It was just the universe. I think I wrote down it's the universe. So many of us have been through a bad situation with a church, or been through a bad situation with ministry or the Bible thumpers or whatever you want to call it. So we have to, there's a way to focus on God, but if you can't use the word God to do that, that's okay.
A higher power.
Like it's all about, for me, in my belief, it's like, okay, take a baby step towards that, and just understand that you're not the center of the universe. And, you know, we as humans are powerless against a lot of things. What we are we're not powerless against our own thoughts and our own actions. So what we can control is what comes out of our mouth and what goes in our mouth. So for me, if somebody is really having a hard time, I would say, you know, behaviorally try to focus on what comes out of your mouth and what goes in your mouth. Oftentimes that has to do with mindset and, you know, your mindset as to how you view the world and things like that. And if you need a change in mindset, you know, take a walk, listen to some music, listen to a positive podcast.
And I think recognizing your self-talk. Yeah. Like, yeah. And like recognizing your positive self-talk. And I know that, I've worked with Kristen on my depression. And for me recently, like, and me and Melissa have spoken, like a couple days ago, I started getting to like a dark place. And I know a lot of people say, oh, but they look at social media and they're like, oh, but this person's life and that person's life. And I'm not going to sit there on social media and talk about my depression. I mean, people know that I suffer from it and that I still suffer from it. And there's a lot of people now that are maybe feeling feelings they've never felt before. And they're like, I don't know what this is. What do I do with this? Like, and how do I recognize it? Or they don't want to put a label on it and say, oh, I'm depressed, or this isn't just the blues. Because I know that in the past, you know, people get the blues. Everybody gets the blues, but then they can remove themselves from a situation or try to figure out a way. You know, right now we're limited with our resources to help us to get out of the blue state or recognize whether this is depression or not. You know, what are some things? I mean, for me, what I felt when people have asked me that are going through this, I've said, well, you know, start a routine. Just in the first thing in the morning, for me, what I did was I would get up and go outside first thing in the morning, get some sunlight and go for a 20-minute walk, or just go for a walk and then have a plan. Try to keep a plan during the day and keep myself, you know, occupied, but in a healthy way. You know, say, okay, I've got to do this and then I've got to do that, and then know when to go to bed. What
about like the Renaissance? Like, yeah, and like, what about like the history of the Renaissance? Like, there was an immense amount of wonderful artwork that came out of that period, and it was because it was because of oppression, and we're in a sense being oppressed right now. You know, whether it's because of the virus or because of the government or a combination thereof or all of the above, we don't really know which yet, but that's a different podcast. Is, you know, maybe going back and just trying some art or you know, looking up some art classes on YouTube. There's just a lot of different projects we can do around the house to feel productive. I think that getting just a paintbrush out and trying to express yourself either through writing, through poetry, through artwork, through drawing, whatever your means.
You want to see my artwork? I'm not even going to show you my artwork.
I think everybody's an artist in some way, shape, or form. Like yours might be writing. Like you may be better.
Yes, no, I know.
I'm sure you are. Most people are much better at writing than I am. But you know, and my, you know, it's everybody has a different interpretation of a drawing, right? And that's part of what's so cool about art. But anyway, the other thing that I was really interested in is these conspiracy theories, Kristen. Yeah. And can you explain why conspiracy theories come out in a time like this?
Yeah. So anytime we feel out of control, by nature, we try to grasp and make sense of our situation. So take it again in a super primitive way, since we all have, you know, animals or have experienced being around animals. If you look at your dog and you say something to him, what does he do? He goes, brr, you know, like, what? I'm trying to make sense of this. And that's a natural response. We have that on a deeper, more cognitive level. When we feel out of control or are trying to wonder what, you know, an explanation for something that's going on that doesn't make a lot of sense, we do the whole bruh, but rather than stopping there, then we try to come up with a theory behind it. And so people are grasping right now for a sense of control when you're feeling out of control. And so enter conspiracy theories, whether it's, you know, a government thing or China or, you know, Bill Gates or whoever the latest target is and why this is happening. People are searching for the why, as opposed to, because it distracts them from the present and distracts from them now. When I'm working with athletes in therapy in general, is the why is important, but it's not as important of how you're actually responding to the situation at hand. So there's a lot of different theoretical orientations out there. I subscribe from one called a brief solution focused orientation, where it doesn't matter necessarily where you've come from in the past as much as it matters of what you're going to do with that information moving forward. So just like we're in the pandemic right now, we can come up with a bazillion whys and never come up with an accurate answer, which then keeps us stuck. But if we look at, all right, something crazy is going on right now, do we really even need to know why in order to take care of ourselves, in order to be hopeful, in order to move forward, in order to think that there's actually going to be something better that comes out of this? And going back to what Melissa was talking about earlier too, is the biggest thing is actually just waking up and saying, I have purpose to the day. The thing that's hard about the pandemic right now, we don't have a specific, it'll be over by July 1st. So if you can just hold on for a couple months, you'll be fine. Same thing with an athlete mentality, right? I can train, I can cut weight, I can be on my diet because my fight is on this day, but the day after I can get, I can go back to normal or go back to a happier life. We don't have that end date right now. And so that also is creating a lot of anxiety. So what I'm telling my clients too is exactly what Melissa's saying. Go back to your very foundation of what you have control over. It's your daily schedule. It's your food. It's your exercise. It's your movement. It's your belief system. And it's what you decide to do with your day. What I'm also really, really encouraging people to do right now, look at it as an opportunity. We're really focused on all the things that are taken away from us, right? Of can't go to the gym, can't go outside, can't do this, can't do this, can't do this.
Yeah.
Anything here can't, you're going to, again, feel that the mood is coming down because you're told no. If what I've been doing, I look at this as like, I can't go to the gym. So this just challenged me to figure out how can I work out in a 700 square foot box right now of my apartment, or outside, or what's available to me. I can't have access to the groceries that I necessarily want on the regular basis. So I learned to bake bread yesterday. So it's like, wow. Those are, I know, I made a lot of loaves. It was cool. So being able to say, all right, this is what I've been given. Now I want to do something with it, as opposed to say, this is what I've been given and I'm stuck and I can't do anything. We can apply this mindset to any aspect out there of your life. If you look at something as an obstacle, it's going to stay an obstacle. If you look at an obstacle as an opportunity, it's going to stay an opportunity, and you'll figure out how to move forward from there.
Yeah.
Right. So
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Like around where I live here, I see a lot more families that are walking together outside and with the kids and all that. And there's people working out outside. We have basketball courts and stuff like that. So they are doing that. But I also think that people have to look at this as like a one day at a time thing. And just the more you think about the future, because like you said before, we don't know when this is going to be over. It's really a one day at a time mentality, and you have to just stay in the present.
Well, saying the power of now is really helped me a lot with not knowing what I worked on with Kristen as well, with not having that fight date. For example, like I have a lot of practice in the state that we're in right now, as a matter of fact. So I'm killing it. I'm killing it.
Yeah. Or knowing when your injury was going to heal too. I remember
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Knowing when I'm going to be able to come back, what's going to happen. So in being in the unknown, but a lot of what you're saying, I agree with, and just knowing that, just like I said, like you said, both of you, about what you're in control of. And that's something that I always had to go to, especially when I started feeling like I started getting depressed, because I started letting the negative things and started to get out of routine, and just not being so OCD about my routines either, not beating myself up if I don't do exactly what I'm supposed to do, so it's definitely a struggle. And I know a lot of other people are feeling it, but I think a lot of people are feeling the lack of motivation. Like, well, I can't get motivated. But I see that as an opportunity. Like you said, I see now is the time for you to figure out what motivates you. What if it's not going to the gym and being around people? You can't, now it's not places, or things that motivate you. It's got to come from within. So it's going to be a lot of self-awareness that's going to present itself, that you're really going to have to acknowledge. And people are going to get to know themselves. And some of them may realize like, oh shit, I'm not, I don't even know who I am. But I think it's an opportunity to get to know yourself, and through art, through all these other different ways, different outlets, if they choose to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, people are being a lot more creative, especially with things like this, and they're doing their podcasts and everyone's doing this kind of thing on Facebook.
But then you get everybody thinking they're a damn professional at everything. That's the thing that I'm running into, and I'm seeing some of this stuff, and I very rarely I go on, and then I'm just like, okay, I need to, because I'm not going to speak. I mean, I try not to speak on something that I don't have experience in. I'm not going to sit here. I'll refer. That's why I bring on people like Melissa and Kristen, because people that I've worked with and I believe and I trust and I know that it's worked for me, and what their information is very valuable, because it's been very valuable in my life. So I think that's important too, not just to have somebody on, just to have them on. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
or just feel like you're there.
Yeah, the amount of information that is out there right now is insane.
Insane,
Like it was
yeah.
really easy to find quality sources and quality studies and quality information about COVID when I started researching it, which was like in January. And then it was about, it feels like like we were saying, every week is like a year. So it's like, so it must have been 3 years ago, which means 3 weeks ago, it just started. Boom, just all these, not just raw studies, but these weird interpretations of the studies. And then, you know, doctors are being very even polarizing. You can find a doctor that says chloroquine is really great. You find other doctors that are saying chloroquine is really bad. And then it's politicized because Trump said chloroquine was good. So now all the Democratic governors are saying that it's bad, banning it. And so it's been really, really hard, especially for someone like me that wants to see data. Like I want to read the data, and I'll read it all day, every day until I understand something. But when it's so clouded with propaganda now, it gets even more challenging to find the truth and sift through that and get your critical thinking hat on. And it's just literally, it's mentally exhausting.
Well, it's funny. I've been running into people, you know, like what Kristen said, people that are just completely like, oh, I don't even care. Like they just don't even, it's like the fight or flight. It's either they're trying to understand and they're doing or they're just completely just like disconnected and they just don't believe it's even real. And that's scary, you know, where I'm just sitting there going, okay, this, it's not real. It's not BS. I mean, it's real, but there's information that we need to put the pieces together, you know, to understand. And how much are we really going to have? And Melissa and I have been going back and forth, and she's been educating me a lot on some things, you know, and I've been trying to understand. I'll ask questions, then I'll do my own research to see some things, and then, you know, just figure it out.
Yeah, it's funny. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that I think that's the best balance that you can do, is because since we don't have a singular truth in this, decide what you want to learn about, but then rely on the truths that you actually know. I think everybody is in agreement that getting enough sleep is healthy for you, that eating, you know, balanced is healthy for you, that moving your body in some way is healthy for you. So those are the things that I'd encourage people to really rest in from a doing your research aspect, as opposed to trying to figure out if your blood type is the right type that feeds off this, that then does
just had that conversation at the gym. Oh my God. I'm like,
no.
Yeah. I mean, it's
well, I
interesting.
did read that Type O doesn't get it. I don't know if that's true though.
Yeah, that was exactly what happened.
Yeah, just like the blood type diet, you know, has a time right?
Yeah. So I mean, you can do your research, but I think ultimately is if you're feeling stressed out from doing the research, it's obviously not working to your advantage. So
listen to your body.
Yeah, do the research that actually, you know, gives you some insight, makes you feel good about your situation, and then rely on the things that you know for certain that have a lot of empirical backing of what actually helps your immune system and keeps you healthy in general. Follow those.
Yeah, sleep is super important. One thing my mom always said was, you can handle anything with a good night's sleep. So something that I think is wisdom that we learn from our parents that we take for granted when we're in our teens, but then later grow up and go, oh yeah, my mom was really right about that. So sleep is definitely number one. Do whatever you can to get adequate sleep. So I've seen some mental health providers suggest not to take naps. Do you have a category of people that you suggest not to take naps?
Yeah, you know, it depends. It depends. Where that comes from is defining, first of all, what a nap is. Anything over 20 minutes is no longer a nap by what most research supports, because as soon as your brain starts going into a REM cycle, which is our restorative sleep cycle, you're no longer truly napping and you're falling into sleep. When you're not completing an entire sleep cycle for what it should be, which is our 7 to 8 hours that we are, you know, kind of told to do, you work against your body and you wake up not feeling as refreshed. So think about it too, like on the days where you sleep in really late and then like take a 2-hour nap later in the day, you're sluggish and you're slow and you feel totally off and you're like, oh, I'm catching up on my sleep. Reality is you can't actually catch up on your sleep. You can be consistent with your sleep and kind of reprogram moving forward how things go, but you can't make up for lost hours. So napping, who is it good for? People that truly need that quick recovery time. There's evidence that certain brains are actually built just for napping and not for sleep. They're few and far between. Einstein was one of them.
Right?
Italians, yeah. But that also is that's also kind of a little bit of old wives' theory, but also if you look at some of the specific people that thrive off of napping as opposed to long sleep, it's very dependent on their jobs and their circumstances. A lot of people that are in jobs where they have to be ready to go, firemen, for example, police officers, that sort of thing, they learn to actually adjust so that they can nap as opposed to get a full sleep. Is it healthy? Who knows in the long-term ramifications of it? But those are usually the ones that we say, get sleep when you can. There's a huge study going on right now, which is really going to be fascinating when it comes out with firemen. Firemen live shorter lives than most other people, and they say partly it's because of the exposure to chemicals and smoke, but a big body of research is showing that they live shorter, I should say, because they're not getting the sleep that we all need. They sleep weird hours, they get called up frequently, in one night they can get 13 different calls and not actually sleep through the night. And so that evidence is really supporting too, that in general, most people are geared for sleeping a true 7 to 9 hours is kind of that uninterrupted in a good quality sleep, and then throw in less than a 20-minute nap if you need it for body restoration.
It's really interesting that you're talking about this right now because I just started working with a sleep coach.
Oh, good, cool.
I'm going to be working with him, because my sleep, especially right now, I notice that there's either I'm not sleeping or I'm sleeping way too much. Like I think one night I slept 11 and a half hours.
Yeah.
Which is insane. And I'm like, all right, how much of that did I need? And then he's giving me some tips about what to do before bed and things that I can
sleep
avoid.
Hygiene.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A lot of it. And a lot of it for me right now, and I'm finding that I'm already started doing it, was detaching from social media or from the computer or from the phone.
Yep.
Yeah. And he says, you take a break. You take a break from that, like going out and doing like a 5-minute walk or just stepping away, even to go to the bathroom. You know what I mean? Like just step away from your phone, put it down, and even he talks about shutting off the Wi-Fi at night. On your phone, disconnecting from that too.
Well, what happens a lot too is screens, and all of us are using screens so much more than we were because of this pandemic, because it's our way of actually working and communicating right now. Screens create artificial light, and that artificial light replicates daylight and nightlight, right? But we tend to be on our screens around the clock, and so it actually messes up our brains a bit in our circadian rhythm, which kind of keeps us knowing when we need to fall asleep and when we need to wake up. So keeping in that theory is say if I want to fall asleep like 10 o'clock, right? It's dark at like 8 o'clock. So I probably should shut my screen off at 8 o'clock because that's when the sun goes down, and not have screen exposure to the time that I want to fall asleep. I know that's asking a lot of most people, myself included, but it's thinking about that just from a very natural way that our brain processes things, is that we need to replicate our exposure to light in the same way that the sun and moon regulate too.
Yeah, and I think getting back to print books before bed is a really good thing. I mean, if you want to fall asleep, pick up the Bible. I mean,
that's exactly what I've been doing. I have the Bible there, and I was actually told my sleep coach, I'm like, I've been trying to read the Bible at night, and I fall asleep. And he goes, no, that's good, because what you're reading. He said, depending on what you're reading.
Mm-hmm. Well, and listening to things too, of having when we were babies before we understood words, we understood rhythms. And so going back to what Melissa was saying with music, or listening to calming, meditation stuff or prayer stuff or whatever, sermons online too, that listening quality actually helps us to fall asleep a bit too.
Yeah. Taking a bath also.
Yep.
Like a warm bath.
Yep. Yeah, everything we're talking about is acting on our very primitive way of existing for calming ourselves. And so that's why we're saying, like, from a foundational perspective of doing the things that calm the senses and are good for restoring your nutrition, restoring your hydration, and restoring your movement, and your sleep involved in that too, is going to balance you out.
They did a study in Japan.
And what do you think about?
They took people and they brought them to the forest for like a couple of days. And it actually increased the strength of their T cells, or the number of their T cells, or something like that, for 30 days afterwards. So I don't know how long they were there for, but the effects lasted for 30 days, just from a couple of days of sleeping in the woods, Yeah. That's interesting. And they said it might have been because of the type of trees that they have there, and like the oils, from the trees or whatever, but it was interesting. It was nothing news.
Just go to Ojai.
There you go. That's where I am right now. Yeah, what do you
Yeah.
think about the binaural beats? I know you've got some background in studying the subconscious. So what do you think? Have you
Yeah.
looked at any of
Say that
those?
again. You cut out right at the beginning part about
Oh,
the.
what do you think about binaural beats? Like where there's
Mm.
different tunes and things that
Yeah.
cause you to either focus or
Right.
fall asleep or
Yeah.
learning, all these
Yes.
different things.
Yeah, no, that's some super interesting stuff. If anybody actually wants to read something, like that's actually super interesting, is how our brain processes different wavelengths. Everything that we do in our brain, obviously, is coming from a neurological place. And what are neurons? Is there electricity, and electricity is rooted in the wave complex, which is, again, without going too scientific, is everything operates on a certain wave, and we interpret that in our brain based on what type of wave is there. When we're trying to get into a very meditative or sleep state, we actually want to get into an alpha wave, which is a long rhythm wave. So that being said, everything that we listen to, that we see, and that we experience physically in our body from our five senses operates on that wave mentality because our brain is perceiving it. So there are certain wavelengths that we tend to gravitate to that calm us down, and other ones that speed us up. One of the most calming, absolutely calming wavelengths that you can be in is your heartbeat, because it's consistent, it's slow, and it's what the first thing that we hear even before the time that we're enter into the world when we're conceived. So there's actually podcasts, and not podcasts, but things you can download that are just heartbeats that you can listen to that are consistent, and that slows down, and your heartbeat will actually end up matching the heartbeat that you hear. Rain is another one too that has a consistently inconsistent pattern. And so what we mean by that is that raindrops, are not just plink, 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 that they're actually coming down in a pattern that makes in nature, but doesn't necessarily cause us stress because we're anticipating that next drop. So there's super interesting stuff. But when we do clinical hypnotherapy, the cadence of the therapist's voice is really important too. So like when I'm, Maureen's experiences, Melissa's experiences too, is I don't say, okay, now go to sleep. It's time for you to go sleep. Kind of, you just really relax. You're doing a good job. Yeah, now it's time to fix all your things, right? It's like, all right, take a deep breath. Now focus on that breath. Time to slow down, and so you're creating this energy. Just I'm back good, right?
It worked.
So you're speaking to the wavelength or the subconscious part of the brain that is again receiving our information on a more primitive level than our conscious level. So I've said primitive quite a bit, and I'll explain a little bit more. Is the subconscious or primitive piece of our brain is just what operates without us having to think about it. It's where we actually can create the most change and have the most consistency because it's in us without us having to overthink it. What happens is we, in our conscious brain, or our the part that we're aware of, that kind of overrides the subconscious a lot of the times and convinces it not to function as healthily as possible. So with hypnotherapy, for example, is the idea with hypnotherapy is it's actually taking your brain back to a very natural state without your conscious thought, your criticisms, your fears, your anxieties, all the messages that you've consciously been giving yourself to interrupt that. We bring you back into a very natural state of being. So, to answer your question, I don't know if I got off on that.
No, it's perfect.
No, it's interesting.
I had a question about I've done this with the guided meditations at night. Mm-hmm. That's helped me out a lot. Or what is it? What is the other one? I forget what the exact word for it is. But some people no, there's the one where they some people like to watch people fold laundry. ASMR.
Yeah, there's one where people like to listen to the sounds of people eating, which I don't personally understand.
But for me, the paintbrush, like a Bob Ross and his voice. Yeah. I would totally listen to Bob Ross and pass out.
There you go.
Just so, but
that's me in golf. You turn on a golf game.
And baseball.
Commentator's voice.
The baseball, the crack of the bats, the announcers. Yeah, that's that. But so that's another way. The ASMR is that correct? Am I saying?
I think that's correct. Yeah.
And then the guided meditations, which I have on my phone with that's helped me a lot too. Which I'm thinking, man, I should do that now when I can't sleep.
Yeah.
It just reminded me.
My students at school, middle school students, love those ASMR videos on YouTube. And there's one woman that they really like who, one show, she ordered this. It was like a 90-pound crab. It was huge. It was a crab, and she was breaking it apart and cracking it and eating it and dipping it in butter. And she ate the whole thing. I'm like, man, this woman is not going to eat this whole thing. But she did. And they're all, I'm like,
and everybody watched it?
And people
Yeah,
watch
they
the whole
watch. I'm
thing.
like, how do you find this relaxing? And they do. I'm like, I don't find this relaxing. I'm ready to throw
Like
up.
how I find
because-
Jersey Shore relaxing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, going back to what we were saying earlier, is this uses
Okay.
an opportunity. Yeah, uses an opportunity to experiment with stuff and figure out what works for you. Because I think when we're caught up in our normal day-to-day, right, and our normal routine is we kind of fall into exactly that, a routine, and we don't always get creative or branch out into seeing what actually works for us. So, try some of those things and see. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I'm old school with that. I learned.
All right, go wait. Melissa, go ahead.
Melissa.
Melissa.
I was gonna say, trying on different shoes, right? Like seeing which one be Goldilocks, see which one fits you, and so I think it is good to listen to some other people's routines. I know that a lot of really successful people talk about what their daily routines are, but if you try it and you don't like it, like, try somebody else's. Or if you like their morning journaling routine, don't feel like you have to follow theirs verbatim. Like take that piece of it and build in something else, like walk your dog first, or like my dad wakes up and does Tai Chi every morning, and other people get up and go on a walk or walk their dog, or there's a bunch of different ways to kind of start your day. Because if you win your morning, you win that. If you go to sleep and you're like, okay, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, just 3 things, and don't make it crazy. Even if it's just one thing, wake up, do that thing. It's like, check that box, and you can congratulate yourself for finishing that task, And I was noticing as a new mom, I was having a really hard time with coming to terms with being a mom. I had an identity crisis with that because I didn't identify with being a mom, because I, for some reason, thought that being a mom made me my mom. Like subconsciously, I figured out that, okay, it doesn't mean that I am my mom. It means that I am a mom, and I am my own type of mom, and I can do it how I want to do it. So that was the first hurdle. And then my next hurdle was that I had full-time mom, full-time job, making dinner is still my responsibility in my house. And, I have all these, household responsibilities on top of now this new responsibility of being a mom.
And you have me. So.
my wife.
That's right, your wife.
My husband and my wife.
That's right.
That have certain expectations of me every day. So I had my list of things that I expected myself to get done increased by 2-fold, if not more, when I became a mom. So at the end of the day, I was always feeling like I failed. And I went through a very hard time. So what I ended up having to do is create an inventory and give myself a grading system on, okay, there's no way I can do these 20 things in one day. But I can, if I do 10 of them, certain things are more important. And I gave myself a grading scale for the more important things versus the less important things, and figured out how I was going to get all things done in a whole week rather than a day. So anyway.
Yeah, I want to speak to that a little bit too. Is so I've also seen in my clients the opposite of the people that we talked about the people that don't necessarily have the motivation. There's also the over motivators that are also falling into depression. There we go. Hi, Maureen. So what happens there is people are looking at this as an opportunity and saying, hey, I don't have to go to work. I don't have to go to my job. So I'm going to accomplish all the things and learn all the things and do all the things, and it has to be done, and it has to be done perfectly. And so I'm hearing a lot from my clients is, I'm going to lose 5 pounds by the end of the week, and they don't lose the 5 pounds, they gain 5 pounds, and then their entire world crumbles. So what Melissa was saying is what we call goal attainment, but it's a breakdown of goals. So I know, Maureen, you and I have done this before, is you set your big lofty goal, right? Is I want to be a world champion. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to do whatever. I want to learn Spanish, right? But then you break it down into a step. And so what would that look like? Oh, look, we have a little visitor. Hey, Eva. So then we break that down. We'll use the 10 pound thing, right? We break that down. Well, what would it entail to lose 10 pounds? Well, probably to eat better. Well, what would that mean? Well, to probably have better access to fruits and vegetables. Well, what would that mean? Well, figuring out where I can get my fruits and vegetables ordered. Okay. And what would that mean? Well, today I'm going to figure out if Instacart delivers to me from my local grocery and order carrots, So if you order carrots that day, you're that much closer to your big lofty goal of losing 10 pounds, even if it doesn't happen the next day. day. So again, that mentality is really, really helpful. And to what we're saying too is the day by day idea, right? Is like, rather than saying I need to accomplish everything and it all has to be done today, is we say, no, I want to accomplish moving towards my goals, and I will approach that daily in order to do that.
That's, it's funny that you talk about I actually just had this conversation with Matt today and a friend of mine where I said, okay, I need to prioritize because I feel like I have so much coming at me, and I'm also trying to fill space so that I don't go crazy. So I'm like,
I don't think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I don't need to fill every single second of my day with something. I need to be okay. And that's where I like that I'm still working at the sleep coach, where just like detaching, stepping away, going for a walk, doing something, away from what I'm normally doing, or trying to keep myself so busy and overachieving and overmotivating. And that's exactly what was happening. I was getting depressed because when I didn't check off that checklist every day, and Melissa and I have talked about this as well. And, but now I need to do, like we talked about, the journal, and I'm going to do that, give myself the grading system that we talked about. And I need to get the schedule down. And I also had to ask people for help, which is it's really hard for me to do. And so I went to Phil, to my strength coach. I said, Phil, I need a schedule. So I need to know what I can do, or what you want me to do, or what you don't want me to do on certain days, whether it's, my boxing. Okay, here's my boxing training. Here's, I'm still training, but what can I do? I have a
structure. Yeah,
exactly. I need that structure. But then I also need to listen to my body and not feel like I have to do this. If I don't do this, then I'm a failure. And I'm like,
failed
no.
somehow. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
so
the
I
other
know
thing,
that take off. Go ahead, Melissa.
Yeah, the other thing that we were struggling with, I had this too, is that if you don't go to the gym, you didn't get a good workout.
Yeah.
This weird subconscious thing that even though I would do the same stuff at my house, at the end of the day, I wouldn't feel like I accomplished the same unless it was in a gym setting, which was really weird. And I still struggle with that association. In my head.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. It's an association of that we've defined that this is good and this is not as good. And so we can reform our associations, obviously. And so same thing is like, I like going to the gym for a lot of different reasons. I work from home anyways, like from around the clock. And so I used to use the gym as an opportunity to go actually out and see people that were existing, in a healthy format. I don't have that anymore. And so even though that I'm working out more than I did when I was before all of this, and in new ways, I still had to overcome that, but I'm not getting that same fulfillment. And so that's the piece I think that we have to redefine, is that it doesn't mean that not going to the gym is a worse exercise. It just means that it's fulfilling you in a different way, and then focus on that. I know, Melissa, I love your posts about you working out in your backyard and seeing like you using your daughter's equipment. I'm like, I love it. I love it. And that's so cool, because what is that also telling you? That's from a very beginning of our discussion, that's your resilience taking over. It's saying, all right, I want to work out. I know that's healthy. That's a non-negotiable. It makes me feel good. That's a non-negotiable. So let me get creative and figure out how I can fulfill that. And you can feel really good that like you use your daughter's little dune buggy thing in order to do ab rolls, So
it allows me to get creative. But I have to be honest, like when I did first have her, as soon as she was able to go to the kids club there, which is the daycare center, 6 months old, I took her. I was like, I can't believe they'll take my kid for $5 and watch her for 2 hours. And I dropped my kid off. And sometimes I would just bring my coffee and like walk
just to
around
hang out
and talk to people.
Which is
so
okay. That's resourceful. That's resourceful.
Yeah, and that's the sort of person I am. So I don't have that. Like, I'm sure other parents are feeling this. Like, you're at home, you're supposed to be working at home with your kids, and your kid walks in during a video or a conference call, and you're supposed to be professional, but now you've got a kid, and then they don't understand. She's too old to understand that, okay, mommy's working, you have to be quiet. Like, there's an age where they develop that. I'm not a child development major, and I don't pretend to be one on the internet, but I know that she doesn't get that yet.
Ava's going to get it before every other kid because she's that special. Just saying.
And same goes for my me time was my gym. And now my me time is at home, but it's not really me time because my kid's there and my husband's there.
And that's the chaos we're experiencing, because all of our different roles have overlap right now, because our work environment and our relaxed environment and our family environment and where we eat and where we sleep and everything is all the same place right now. And so that's where we do have to define, like, okay, this is a designated time to do this. This is a designated time to do this. So we don't have this overflow. Speaking of it from the perspective of having having worked from home now for almost 6 years, is there, you do really have to make those definitive marks in your day. I used to start my work from home, because it wasn't even a video, is I'd roll out of bed 5 minutes before I had to turn on my computer, turn it on, and probably not shower or brush my teeth until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and felt horrible. And the reason for that is because I didn't have a definitive, like, I'm starting my day. I'm actually looking decent. I'm mentally preparing for my day. And so now that all of our roles are overlapped, we do have to say, all right, now is my mom time. It's my totally focused, not gonna take work calls. Or now's my work time. And even if the kid, pops in and interrupts, address what I need to, but really the focus right now is going back onto work and allowing that balance to kick over. And it's hard right now. It's really hard to do.
You know what's really funny about I spoke to Melissa about this too, and I think I spoke to Matt, but my big issue was, okay, I'm grateful that I have a gym now in my garage. So I have a heavy bag, I've got my double, I got everything set up, and Derek will come over, I'll do mitts. But my big thing was, I need to leave my house to work out, because I have to leave. I can't do it here, because I was getting anxiety about thinking about that. And I'm like, no, I have to leave here. I have to find a place. I don't care if we're in a park or somewhere else. I can't be in this house. And like you said, I had to, exactly what I did. I had to say, okay, like I did just like, okay, I'm not traveling as far, but I start my workout at 9:30. I go down, I start my workout, and then I do it for this long. I set my time, then okay, upstairs to work or go food shop or do what I do. But I shower, I change, I put on normal clothes. I put makeup on, because I have to feel still like I'm, the one thing that I do miss that I'm noticing is, like, I forgot where I was going. I got dressed up, and they're like, why are you getting all dressed up? I'm like, because I haven't. And I just feel good. I need to, like, I don't care if I'm walking around my house. I just need to get dressed up, because I feel like my Monday through Fridays are, I'm in the gym most of the time, so I don't really dress differently, but I'm finding that I need to more. And also on Saturdays and Sundays, I'm like, all right, once my Saturday workout's done, I'm not going anywhere, but I need to change my clothes, put on some makeup, and feel like I'm actually doing something. Maybe have a socialize on FaceTime or something like that, because it's like I'm trying to do my best. And I've gone over the fact, because I was setting myself up, but like you said, making those definitive times to do that, it really makes a difference. Because once I did that, the anxiety went away and the structure took over.
Yep, exactly.
I think time blocking is super important, and people, I think, can Google that, and do some research on time blocking and what that means and different strategies for that. But yeah, I fell into the same thing, Kristen, where I worked at home for a long time and I love what I do. So what ended up happening was I would wake up and I'd start working, and then next thing you know, I'm working until I go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then I wake up the next day and I do it again.
And do it all over again.
And the next thing you know, I'm like waking up, I'm like, I'm burnt out.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
What the hell happened? Like, I love what I do, but I was getting burnt out. So yeah, I had to build in that extra time. But the other thing that I wanted to bring up was Maureen and I were talking one day, and I said, yes, it's really hard. We were talking about all the different things that people must be going through in quarantine. And like, I was talking about my challenges as a mom, but then I also wanted to recognize her challenges as being a single woman, like waking up and not having a little person that's like smiling and she's wrestling with me and she doesn't know what's going on. Like, she's completely, I can look at her and just completely forget about the world, because she's got, it's a way of me like channeling my inner child, and remembering what that's like, and get swept away by that energy. But, Maureen, people like Maureen don't have that. And so I think sometimes obviously having families is hard, because either whether you like your family or you don't, the not liking your family is, even that much harder, and being in an abusive house and all those challenges we recognized in the beginning of the podcast. But then there's also the people that live alone. And then what if you're an elderly person that lives alone? That's even harder. So
no, that's a very, very real challenge. And those are the people that are utilizing a lot of the mental health services too, because a lot of people that do have family members can commiserate together or talk about their feelings, at the end of the day, or whatever with other people. But it's harder when you're living alone and truly have that physical distancing too, even from being able to get a hug, or you can't go get a massage even. So, and we all know physical touch is so important for us. So what there's no quick answer or no, this will change all of this, except again, having hope that this will change eventually, but using this time of loneliness or isolation to really figure out your likes and dislikes. One thing about us being in groups or around people is that we really don't know what we like because we tend to go along with what other people want, no matter your personality. Like, think about it. If you're all going to go to dinner, like 7 people go to dinner, what do you want? Well, what do you want? Well, what do you want? And you come to a consensus, as opposed to one saying, I want Mexican food. That's it. Nobody else gets an opinion about it. So when you're a single person alone during this quarantine, it's all you. It's your entire opinion about everything. And so take advantage of that. It's like, if you want to eat pizza at 2:00, even if it's not that probably healthy for you or whatever, you can do it and then figure out, well, did I really like that? Did I not like that? And so take that as an advantage and an opportunity to actually listen to your intuition, listen to what your likes and dislikes are, and go with it.
It's good advice.
Thanks.
Yeah,
well, Maureen has a great little dog too. She's got a great dog.
He's good. No, actually, you know what?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, and Kristen, recommended it, and getting an emotional support animal, and that's what he is. And honestly, I got him in December, and I gotta say, it's like the best thing I ever did. I'm so grateful because my time now would be way harder if I didn't have him. The responsibility to have to get up and take him outside and go for that walk. If I'm feeling like, and then. So it's and honestly, he's not a human, but when we get up in the morning, he's all excited and happy.
Yeah.
And when I go to bed,
and
I just hug him and I tell him that I love him. I talk to him. We have conversations. I mean, I'm sure you do too with Gustavo. You know what I mean? We have full-on conversations. I mean, it's great, and so that helps me so much. So I know for people that, I mean, you want to make sure you're ready for a pet, or if you want to get an emotional support animal. There's a lot of places right now, especially that are looking, especially where I got Get a Life Pet Rescue is where I got Chorizo, and Stacy is her name. And you can put that on. It's Get a Life Pet Rescue on Instagram. And she, I mean, I don't know how that's working right now, how they're doing it, but I know that they still have animals that are up for adoption, but just make sure that it's, you're ready for that.
There's a lot of places too. I know out in San Diego here at the Humane Center, they're encouraging people actually to foster animals right now.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
Because they don't have as much staff support, to come in and actually interact with the animals too. So there's even programs right now that are helping people with dog food and things like that to foster for the time being. So it's a double served purpose. The dogs get a home for a little bit, maybe a permanent home, and humans get companionship too.
No, that's great.
Well, they said there was on the local news. They said this was the first time in history that the Palm Beach animal shelter had empty kennels.
Oh, that's awesome!
Wow.
So there have been a lot of people that have been adopting dogs now.
Oh, that's good to hear. That's so good to hear.
That's awesome.
Well, is there I don't want to keep you guys on for much longer, but is there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about?
I have a burning desire question. I
She does.
I know that we're winding down. I don't know if this is gonna totally take us off the deep end, but what are drug addicts doing right now? How do you get your stuff? I've been clean since I was 17 years old, and I could just imagine how difficult it is. And then if you can't get what you need and you don't have the money to get what you need, what are you going to do? And then you can't get into a rehab or a detox center right now, right?
Yeah. So what's happening right now? So one of my specialties that I deal with and during my 9 to 5 is actually helping people get in the right level of care, whether it's a acute hospitalization for psychiatric conditions all the way down to outpatient therapy and everything in between. So a couple of things are happening with that. People that don't have access to their substances are finding an alternative substance to use. So people are actually using household products right now to try to get high off of. They're drinking rubbing alcohol. They're they're just coming up with some ways that are destroying their bodies too. Other people are getting very creative and want to quarantine in a really fancy rehab in Malibu. And so if they can get themselves in the door, they're in there for 30 days doing pottery and riding horses and, kind of dealing with a lower level staff right now too, that isn't available because of the quarantine too. So people are getting very creative. There's the other ones too that are just going cold turkey. A lot of people are using this as an opportunity to try to get clean, get off smoking, because they don't want to have to go and get cigarettes. Those can't be delivered to you. You can't order them in most states. I actually think one of the biggest detriments to our entire nation right now is the fact that they're allowing liquor stores to deliver to your doorstep. I think that, if people have to put effort into something, they're going to determine whether or not it's worth the effort.
That's right.
And right now, nobody really has to put the effort into to have access to things. So it's an interesting time right now. We have a lot of people too that are realizing that their significant others are addicts because they've done a really good job of hiding it. Now they're not on those things, and their behaviors and everything are amplified. Or they're going through a really hard detox and realizing now that that's another component. So how I'm looking at this from a kind of a psychological professional sort of way is this is making things very, very clear of where people's issues are. And it's going to be a determinant of what we decide to do with that. So if you thought, well, maybe I have a drinking problem, and now you realize you really do have a drinking problem, or maybe my relationship isn't so good, you're going to realize that, yeah, it really isn't, or the opposite. I don't know if I like my husband. Now you know that you love him, so do with that. Going full circle this is your opportunity to really get rid of all the other stuff that's been clouding the reality of the situation and focus on what is actually truly at your core for your health, for your well-being, for what's important in your life.
It's forcing inventory, like looking at your inventory.
It is. Yep.
Yeah. No, that's great. And it's great information. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming on. Is there anything else, Melissa, that you want to say?
Just on the health side, people want to take, I know people are asking me about supplements. I just keep it simple. Zinc lozenges, have been shown to stop viruses from multiplying. So that's it with any virus, really, especially a respiratory virus that gets access through your respiratory system. And elderberry is also really, really good. I've found whole elderberry. I like the whole elderberries because they're cheap. I'm a cheap person. I don't like spending a ton of money. And I found like the syrups have a ton of sugar in them. I'm not like against sugar by any means, but I just having that like first thing in the morning, I just don't think a lot of sugar first thing in the morning is a good idea. But yeah, just keep it simple. Don't overwhelm yourself with like too much stuff. Maybe some extra vitamin C. Make sure you're getting your vitamin D. And after that, like just whole foods, sleep, take care of your behavioral routine. Try to get some sort of a routine. Get sun, sleep. Make sure you're focusing on your sleep, and just like try to keep it simple and do what Kristen said.
Yeah, do what I say. I like that. Well, and I think I'll add on to that too. If you are experiencing significant mental distress too, is there's a lot of resources out there right now for you, and it's not something that you do need to sit on or feel ashamed by. Everybody, this is a real thing, that's going on. It's a real stress that's there too, and so there's a ton of resources that are popping up. Telehealth right now, which is basically being able to video chat with a therapist, is now available in every 50 state, and we've also taken a lot of the state restrictions off of that, meaning that you can see a therapist in other states if you don't have one readily available. So a quick Google of online therapy, you'll find a lot of good resources too.
And I think Alexa can do it right away. Like there was a commercial I saw today. So a woman was just talking to Alexa, and Alexa was a therapist.
Alexa knows enough. Yeah, right. Oh God, please.
She's better than
I don't know who's on the
you just reach out. Yeah, you just reach out to your healthcare provider, and whether it's Kaiser, Blue Shield, Anthem, they all have telemedicine, and most of them use Teladoc. So even just Googling Teladoc, you can see a drop-down menu of all the health insurance companies they work with, and get a start from there.
And there's some people that I know that are trying to get on like a health kick right now, and they're trying not to, or somebody like me who's trying to maintain and not, or stay on my eating and stuff like that. Is there anything that you recommend that people that want to start eating healthy now, since they're limited, or they only have, they're looking at taking this opportunity to kind of, start a healthy lifestyle, since they're already doing the workouts and stuff and they're going out? Is there anything that you recommend, or how would they go about that? Melissa, did you hear my question
about healthy lifestyles?
Yeah, what about if somebody wants to start start eating, starting a diet, starting a meal plan, starting a weight loss journey? Like they're like, okay, I need a goal, so I'm going to set my goal, like you said, like, oh, I'm going to lose some weight, or I'm going to start eating healthy. Like, where can they get, where their resources, or what can they do to start doing that?
I mean, everybody's so different. It's hard to answer that question in a very general way. I mean, some people, as Kristen knows, have eating disorders and they focus on that too much. And maybe they just need to not focus on that right now and just focus in on nourishing their body for health. And then we have other people that are obese or overweight, and they need to just try to eliminate some processed foods in their diet. So, and everybody has a different threshold for change, right? So sometimes that change may just be focusing on their sleep, and then getting better sleep will then eliminate their cravings. Because when you're having cravings, if you're not getting good sleep, then you're going to have insulin disruption, and insulin disruption is then going to lead you to seek energy, and seeking energy, your brain seeking energy is going to be necessarily glucose, and you're going to want to eat some glucose, which is sugar and sugary things. So I guess if I had a simple message, it'd be whole foods. Try to stay away from bags and boxes. Again, it's not sexy. But eggs, have some whole eggs in the morning. They have tons of vitamin A, vitamin E, omegas. Yeah, they're so good for you. Try to have grass-fed beef. If you can't get grass-fed beef, if you don't have enough money, non-grass-fed beef is fine. Like, don't freak out. I know a lot of people I like grass-fed beef because I like the message it sends. Like, I like sustainable farming. I like free-range eggs. Even if you just look at a free-range egg, it's like bright orange. It's obviously got more nutrients in if it's bright orange versus if it's like pale and matches the white of the egg, right? So I like to focus on things, try to go local. We may have some supply chain issues coming up here pretty soon with our food supply. I don't want to freak anybody out, but try to find what farmers you can access locally. Go to local butchers. If you can't find meat at the grocery store, trying to find a local butcher. Luckily here in America, we do have a lot of farming here. We do have a lot of industrial ag in America. So we're very fortunate for that resource, especially here in California. So super fortunate. Try to eat, fruits and vegetables. If you're going to eat grains, try to stick to whole grains like rice. Rice is pretty cheap. Beans are fine. Some people do fine with beans, some people don't. So, it all depends on somebody's budget, somebody's ability to, how much change is too much change for someone. Because I could write somebody a perfect plan and then they can't follow it. So, like, what's the point? Because, everybody has a different barometer of how much they can take on in any particular time, and then how much they should take on. If you've got a type A type of person, or you've got somebody that's slow to make changes, or two different people, and then you've got the people that are have disordered thinking about their food, and maybe they need to not think about what they're eating right now and have a piece of pizza. Like, maybe they haven't had a piece of pizza in a year. Like, maybe it's okay to order,
and it was
maybe
amazing.
Order some freaking Domino's and eat a piece of pizza. Like, it's
and
not
that's okay.
Like, and that's okay. Like, I don't know. I just like the whole balance message. I think mindset and focusing on why you're doing something is really important too. When sending, when it comes to health, when it comes to performance, a lot of times you have to sacrifice the health piece, especially like the last month or so. It's like, okay, well, we just need to get to this number, and we're going to do some, cutting here and there, which isn't necessarily healthy, but we're going to meet our goal, and it's going to be short-lived as humanly possible. And that's okay. It's to meet a performance goal. But right now, if we're just focusing on health, just take all those things into consideration. And
are you taking on it? Are you taking on any new clients?
Not really. If somebody came to me and they really needed help in the area, then I would take them on. But yeah, they could reach out to me, and I can try to help them as much as I can, and I'll let them know if I have some time, because I'm not going to take on too many people, because I'm into making sure I have enough time for everybody.
And Kristen, you have to get licensed in Florida, so I can send you.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's lifted right now.
See you.
It's lifted right now. Yeah, you just have to get on my wait list, though.
The privacy health, the HIPAA regulations have been lifted, so we're all good.
Oh, that's right.
But I'm happy to help with resources too if people want to reach out directly. I'm not actively, my schedule is very, very full right now, and I'm trying to practice my own self-care too of not working around the clock. So, but I'm happy to help with resources, or at least
awesome.
direct in the right way.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for coming on. Thank you for sharing such great information. And yeah, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you
And-
all.
And we'll have all the information, like you see. Thank you, Ava.
Wait, here it is. Look,
Okay.
hi, Ava.
Oh, look. Hi, Ava.
There's your name. Your name, it's right there.
You see Mo right there?
Or
That's Mo. You see Mo?
She's so cute. Oh, she's great. All right. Well, thank you all very much for coming on and sharing this great information. I love you all. Stay safe and healthy.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a good
thank
night.
you.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Okay, bye-bye.